with this work, I'm going to begin with showing you a very logical way in which to comprehend how our inner world is made up, how our inner world is made up. Okay, and then we're going to look at some activities and how to self-reflect and really prepare for the integration that is going to occur when we get together and do your one-on-one integration. So the first thing I want to speak to you about is just reminding you, and I say reminding you because the knowledge is there within you. There is a reason why you are on this call today, or you're watching this this lesson today, is because there's been a part of you that has been whispering, that has been knowing all of the stuff that's inside of this inner triangle right here, right? There's been a part of you that has been pulling, whispering, and knowing that there's more than what's been played out so far in your life experience. So at the core of us, what makes us, whole and complete is the knowing that we are lovable, worthy, and good enough. And you know that at a core level. We all know that at a core level. Consciously, though, after doing life for so many years, we have forgotten, right? We do forget this knowing at times. And so the most important work is transforming our inner world to a level where we are reminded of this, and where we do have the proof of this, and we operate from today, or from after doing this work, we operate in a manner in which we understand that we are worthy, we are lovable, and we are good enough. So this is the journey back to who we truly are. I call this work, in a nutshell, just remembering who we are at a core level. That's how I would say it in one line. Now, how we do that is doing exercises and integrations of our identity, yes, and everything that makes up our mindset. But the main ones are to create this core confidence, or this self-esteem within us, to really truly reclaim our knowing of that we are worthy, we are lovable, and we're good enough, is to practice expressing our emotions. Okay, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to learn how to express our emotions, because along the way there were emotions that weren't accepted in our family units or in our tribes. And so if we're not expressing the full spectrum of emotions, then we're not expressing our full self. So the work that we're going to be doing here is about creating an identity that does allow for the full spectrum of emotions to be experienced. The other one is to be able to communicate your needs, the needs that you innately need to experience in your life, and not experience, and be able to communicate that as well. It's also about being able to communicate your boundaries, right? The invisible force fields around you that keep your inner garden or your inner world intact, and all of the flowers in your garden make up your truth and your beauty, right? And not everybody is meant to come into your garden, okay, and experience that truth and that beauty and hear that, right? But it absolutely is made for some people to come in, and it's about you knowing, right, when someone is crossing a boundary that they haven't been invited into, right? They haven't been invited into your world yet. They're coming in. It's about you expressing, hey, that's not appropriate. Okay, and so often when we've grown up, there have been violations of our boundaries being crossed many a time. And so this work is about putting back in place our ability to communicate our boundaries, right? Let people in and let people know when they're coming in unannounced or uninvited, right? So it's about communicating and expressing all of these different components, the emotions that we have, the needs and the boundaries that we have. So once all these three are intact, all of these three things, emotions, needs, and boundaries, once they're all intact and being expressed and communicated in a resourceful, healthy way, this is where our our inner self-esteem or our core confidence begins to strengthen. Okay. And this is where we really believe and begin to remind ourselves and feel that we are worthy, lovable, and good enough. So that is how we create that deep core confidence. Now, let me give it to you this way. I want to talk to you about where this all began, where your journey began, and where you've ended up so far. So where it began was you came in as an infant, a beautiful, pure child, full of love, full of joy, full of, wonder, right? And you were ready for anything, like we all were when we came in. It's like when you look at a baby, it doesn't matter if you know the baby or it's your neighbor's baby or it's a stranger in the street and you walk past and you look into that pram and the baby smiles and you just light up. It's like you just cannot help but just smile and feel a deep sense of love when you look at a baby or a child. And this is who we were when we came in. This is who you were. There was no obstacle too great. There was nothing that scared you as such, right? You were optimistic. Everything was love and joy. So I trust that makes sense. Now, look, along the way, as we're growing up in our family units and our tribes with our parents, our caregivers, grandparents, our magical bigger people, bigger than us, people that we looked up to and learned from, we started to learn. We started to learn what was on. We started to learn what was not on. Okay. And so as we're growing up in our tribes, these magical big people, and they were magical because you'd turn around and there'd be food on the table, or they'd just have a way of making you feel warmth, and they would take care of you. If you needed something, it would be there. Yeah. And in most cases. And so we looked at our caregivers or the significant adults in our lives as magical big people. And what we wanted to do as children is we wanted to make sure that we were doing right by them, that we were fitting in, and that we were coming into this life experience, and we made sure that we took care of them because they were taking care of us. And so what happened is that our magical big people, when we were growing up, they had a list of approved emotions, needs, and boundaries. Approved as in they accepted of them. They were the emotions that they felt comfortable expressing, and there were some that they weren't. There were needs that they were comfortable communicating, and then there were some that they weren't, and likewise for boundaries. And so what we were doing as we're growing up and learning is we were learning what was accepted and what wasn't. And so when we did something that wasn't accepted, we knew about that. Either it was communicated to us verbally, or maybe it was sensed through energetically, right? And when we felt that it wasn't on, then we shut it down. And we labeled it as a part of ourselves that we shouldn't do. And it was like a layer of clay or crud that we shouldn't do. And instead, the things that we learned were okay and were accepted, we did more of, right? To take care of our family unit, our tribe, because after all, these things that were accepted were a part of the list of accepted needs, emotions, and boundaries that our magical big people like to see, like to experience, like to do. And we wanted to make sure we did the same as well, to make sure that everything in our tribe stayed intact. Okay. And so what we ended up with is a whole bunch of layers of crud that we knew weren't accepted. So we didn't do them. And then what we layered over top of all of that was an acceptable version of ourselves that were made up of all the acceptable needs, emotions, and boundaries that our magical big people did approve of. And so what happened is that we've got this crust around all the stuff that we didn't want to show, got this crust that was made up of acceptable stuff that we now show to the world as, you know, as who we are. Now, that version of ourselves is different for every single person, and the only thing that matters is what's going on for you. And this is what we're going to look at in this lesson, okay, is understanding who you are, who you have become, and who you know, and what is also underneath that on so many levels. That's what we're going to look at unpacking. So I trust that makes sense. Now, a couple of things before I go on to the next slides is that, one, it's really important to suspend all judgment about anybody else or yourself for that matter, okay? Understanding that some of the things that you uncover or that come up for you regarding other people or your magical big people is that bringing compassion is so important, because they too had their core, their clay, and their crust going on. They had their own magical big people and their own family units and own tribes, and they had their own associations with what was on and what wasn't on. And so while there may be some things that come up for you, I really do ask you to bring compassion and just suspend any judgment about, you know, right or wrong doing, right? Because at the end of the day, everybody involved in this journey that you're about to go on, everybody that has influenced you, affected you in some way, they've all been a victim or a part of another tribal cycle with their own magical big people influencing, you know, the decisions and the choices that they've made later on. And so bringing compassion and understanding this point that I'm making is really going to help you look at it from a perspective of you're here to heal and to, you know, explore your inner world, and whilst bringing compassion to what may have been going on, what may have been influencing and going on for, you know, the people in your tribe and in your tribal cycle. So that's one thing to take into consideration. And the other one is that there is such a beautiful gift in this work. And that gift is, now that you're here doing this work and understanding how these tribal cycles are kept in place, if you're now here exploring your roles and what was, you know, accepted and what wasn't accepted, and you're able to, you know, now do this work, make choices, and reclaim the parts of you that haven't, you know, that haven't seen the light of day in a little while, then what you're doing is you're making a choice, and that choice is going to, you know, inspire who you're about to become as a result of reclaiming these parts of yourself. That's going to then inspire your future generations, okay? Because and this knowledge that you're obtaining here about your inner kingdom is going to inspire, you know, your future generations, and it's able to end the tribal cycle of just doing as we've always done and sort of just like having it perpetuate generation after generation. It can stop here with you, which is the beauty of it. So, and then the last thing I want to remind you of is that anything that comes up for you, or, you know, you see as a part of us doing this work together, like going through and having a look at what is underneath the crust. The one thing that I would say to you is that to really bring in compassion for yourself and suspend the judgment, because as you go through and do this work, there are current roles that are in place, and so the judgment that would be coming up, if any, would be from the position of your current roles. And so it's really important to bring compassion in these moments, because one, you're doing the best that you absolutely could have with the knowledge that you've had, right? So yes, now you're here obtaining new knowledge and expanding out what you do know. However, before this point, you may not have known. And so it's really important to bring compassion to that you were just doing the best that you knew how, okay? And you know, you should be really proud of yourself for being where you are today, and also while being really excited and eager for where you're about to go with these parts of you that potentially haven't seen the light of day and have been missing from your experience. So there's just a couple of things I wanted to, bring in before we move on.